fame. Let's go.
Welcome back to the 14ASports radio show. All right, so it is time for the big fantasy finish right now. And as always, Kevin Epstein on the phone. What's going on, Kev?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Awesome.
What's up, Kev? How are you?
All right.
We missed you last week.
I know it. It's drafting season. We can't miss these shows, man. People need this advice.
Well, the A-team wasn't all here last week, so we felt that
But what we did is we did our draft order on the show. I'm gonna be picking at the 8th spot. Where you guys at?
11.
I'm in a 10 hole.
Yeah, back to
Ooh.
back there. Yeah.
I think I like that. I like that 8th spot to start out. So that's not a bad place to be this season.
Yeah, I'll find some way to screw it up. All right, so tonight we're going to be breaking down the quarterback position for everybody. Now, Kev, you wrote a great article about this, about waiting on a quarterback. Let's start out with your strategy on how we're going to start out with it.
Well, basically, this is an interesting year for the quarterback, and it's a little bit of what I talked about in the article. The position is so deep, and there's so many players, because of the emergence of these running quarterbacks last season. It's kind of a new thing for the NFL, and the position is so deep that really the smart money this season is probably going to be waiting on quarterback definitely a lot longer than last year, where you saw 3 or 4 quarterbacks going up the board in the first round. That will not happen anywhere. I promise you that.
Definitely.
And if it does, you're cheering, right? If I'm in a draft and I see quarterbacks start going early, I'm happy, right?
I couldn't be happier. Even just one quarterback in the first round changes the whole dynamic of the draft. You love it. You laugh at that person after the draft.
The guy on our show last week, what's George have, like the 4th or 5th pick? He's saying he's going with Rodgers right there.
Yeah.
Mike, that is insanity. He can get him in the second round.
Let's all laugh at George right now.
Wait, make sure he's not listening to the show. Let him take him in the first round. Go ahead. That's great.
Well, you know what it is with George. He's the autograph guy. He's out waiting at the hotels all the time. He's not getting all this good information.
Yeah. But so, Kev, talk more into the strategy. So why don't you want a quarterback? Because it's so deep and you want to secure the running backs? Why? Tell us why.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the running back position is really thin. There's only so many guys who are going to be able to anchor your fantasy team. So you really want to grab one of those guys, because by the 3rd round, you're pretty much getting into 2nd and 3rd level running backs. The flip side is on the quarterback position. I'm going to take an example. You guys are doing a 12-person draft.
Right, PPR.
I can give you 12 names of quarterbacks that I'm perfectly comfortable with. And more interestingly, the bottom 8 or 7 or 8 of that group, I pretty much have a difficult time distinguishing between. I mean, is there much of a difference between Kaepernick, taking him 6th, or Andy Luck taking him 11th? Who knows? At that point, it's just a crapshoot. But the difference is I'm getting Kaepernick. I got to spend a 4th or 5th round pick. Andy Luck, I'm spending a 7th or 8th round pick. So, that's the difference on your team between a wide receiver like Dwayne Bowe in the 5th round, who, solid guy, or taking a wide receiver in that 8th or 9th round like a Golden Tate, somebody inconsistent, somebody you're not real happy with, as a starter on your team. So I think when I'm building a strong team and I'm looking for relative value, I'm trying to figure out, if I use this 4th or 5th round pick on a quarterback, I pretty much need to then skip a wide receiver or running back till the 7th, 8th, and I'm just not getting the guy that I like in the 8th round.
Right.
But I can get a quarterback I like in the 8th, so why not?
Now, that is interesting. You just mentioned Golden Tate. I think he is a wide receiver that a ton of people are not even looking at right now. I know when I'm doing mock drafts, he's going in the 10th, 11th round, and he's going to be the main guy there in Seattle this year.
Well, I mean, if you look at Golden Tate, though, and he's been creeping up ever since the injury to Harvin.
Right.
Definitely when Harvin went down, people kind of think Tate is going to be this next guy to step up. But there's nothing in his history as a wide receiver to really indicate that he's a 1,000-yard guy. I'm fine with him. I like him where he's going and about the, I like him in the 10th round.
Yeah.
But I'm not crazy about him. If I'm looking at Golden Tate in the 8th round against, guys like, would be in the 8th round, maybe an Aaron Dobson or an Alshon Jeffrey or those type of guys, those sort of flyer type players that a Tavon Austin. Some guys you're not sure about, but I'm probably taking a flyer on Tavon sooner than I'm grabbing Golden Tate.
Definitely.
All right, interesting. So the quarterback. So you're advocating to wait late. So let me ask you this: say you wait late, right, and you take a quarterback. Are you gonna take your second quarterback a little bit earlier than if you had a Breeze or a Rodgers? You gonna go quarterback? Maybe not necessarily back to back, but are you gonna go maybe a 7 and a 10 or a 7 and 9? Are you gonna grab like a Ben Roethlisberger to back your guy up? What do you think on that?
I think it depends a lot on who I get as my quarterback. If I get a guy who's one of the running back quarterbacks, Kaepernick, Wilson, definitely RG3. I'm more concerned about my hedge than guys like Romo and Stafford and Matt Ryan, who really have no history of getting injured. So I also happen to really like the second tier quarterback. I mean, there's a big group of backup quarterbacks that I kind of like that are sleepers. So I'm pretty comfortable waiting on that backup quarterback unless I have RG3. If I have RG3, I might try to get a second top 12 quarterback on my team. I had a thought where, if I wanted to take RG3 maybe in the 7th round, I might grab Andrew Luck in the 8th, just to have that backup on your bench that you think is pretty good.
Little insurance plan there, yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's rank the top quarterbacks real quick. All right, now I did one that I emailed over to you. I'm thinking number 1 Rodgers, 2 Breeze, 3 Peyton Manning, 4 Newton, 5 Brady. Now 5 seems to be a little bit, I guess, a better spot for Brady now. Just knowing with the weapons and now the injuries and stuff like that. Now, how do you feel about that top 5?
Yeah, I'm pretty on board with the way you had them ranked definitely for the top 5. I'd put them in a little bit of tiers though, because I think there's a big difference between for example, you have your elite tier guys, which are your top guy. Really, Brady and not Brady, Rodgers and Breeze are your 2 super elite guys. Really consistent. They don't generally have bad weeks. These are guys that are going to put up 40-plus touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, almost a guarantee. So I kind of put Breeze and Rodgers in a class by themselves. Breeze might be a better option than Rodgers this season. Breeze has outscored Rodgers in fantasy points every season that the two of them have been in the league at the same time. So whereas a lot of people grab Rodgers first, I'd probably grab Drew Brees before Aaron Rodgers this year, especially considering Rodgers, who had a pretty spotty offensive line to begin with, he already lost his left tackle.
And Jordy Nelson's having a knee procedure. We'll see how that goes. And Greg Jennings gone.
Say he'll be ready though.
There's a lot of weapons missing over there. At this point, Jordy Nelson is a scary player. Guy's been injured all last year. Now he's got the knee. Who knows what's going to happen with him? So, I'm not crazy about James Jones as a real quality wide receiver. He caught a lot of touchdowns last year, but he doesn't have that much talent. And I love Randall Cobb, but Rodgers is going to need to have some other weapons at his disposal. So if Jordy stays down for a while, he might have a little tough start out of the gate. And that offensive line doesn't make me happy in Green Bay at all.
Boy, I'm liking George's pick at 4 with Aaron Rodgers. The more and more we talk about it.
Yeah, let him grab him. I mean, I would take Breeze before Rodgers this year.
Interesting. All right. Talking about
continuing with the tiers though, your next, I'd say, just a step below the super elite is your Peyton and Newton tier. Okay. Peyton Manning, Cam Newton, these guys are awesome. So Peyton is Peyton. He probably has potential to be the number 1 fantasy quarterback for this season. So there's your tier 2, and all the rest of those guys are pretty much in tier 3. That whole rest of the group that takes you down to number 12, they're all really similar. I probably have Stafford at the top of that grouping, or Brady and Stafford at the top of the grouping, but after that, it's pretty much a crapshoot.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you about Stafford. 2 years ago, tremendous year. Last year, not as many touchdown passes. I think he only threw 19 or 20 touchdown passes.
I think it was 23 and 19, I think.
Calvin Johnson didn't score as much. But how about Stafford this year? Actually, he came to the league a little injury concern. The last 2 years, he stayed healthy both years. You add Reggie Bush to that dynamic.
That's the wild card.
Maybe a second wide receiver in Broles, which we spoke about a couple weeks ago. Tell me about Matty Stafford. What do you think?
I mean, you're spot on. I think some of the injury concerns have sort of been elated with Stafford the last couple of years, so no one's really looking at him as an injury risk anymore. And I really think that the Reggie Bush signing is going to make a big difference in Stafford's stats this season. I mean, they love to throw to the running back. Those touchdowns count for Stafford and Bush.
Oh, yeah.
And I really see a bounce-back season. If you remember last season, Stafford was going at the top of the second round. I mean, he was a guy that you were taking right with the 12th or 13th pick in the draft last season. It didn't work out very well for people who drafted him. Detroit had a down year. Calvin Johnson, like you said, down on the 1 yard line 7-8 times.
Yeah.
He really missed out on some of those touchdown numbers. I expect a bounce back. I don't think that pattern of wide receivers getting knocked down on the 2 yard line is something that's going to continue. I love the Reggie Bush signing. I love him as a player this year, and I really like the potential that he brings to Stafford, especially considering this is not a between the tackles runner. A lot of his runs are going to be off screens and pass plays. So
open space. Yeah.
Stafford participates in those points.
Right. Now here's something interesting. It's something that we didn't have the notes or anything like that, but two dynamics that I think are interesting because you typically don't want to have the quarterback and the running back on your team from the same team. So, for instance, if you have Matthew Stafford, Reggie Bush, Tom Brady, Shane Vereen, do you think that's a good play this year to have something like that?
That's an interesting. That technique is called stacking.
Right.
So bringing, combining a quarterback, wide receiver. What stacking does is it's going to increase the volatility of your end scores.
Right.
So you're basically tying yourself to the success of a particular team when you do that, as opposed to these individual players. It's kind of like anytime you diversify anything, you want to spread out the risk. So there's a few different ways to look at it. I don't really take it into account very much when I'm drafting my teams. I don't want two wide receivers generally from the same team. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I don't mind combining a quarterback and a running back, quarterback and a wide receiver. As long as it's really not three players from the same team, I think you're okay.
Yeah. All right, interesting. All right, so the reason I feel that the quarterback has so much depth this year is essentially because last year we had kind of an explosion of quarterbacks. You had Kaepernick, you had Russell Wilson, RG3, Andrew Luck. They came on the scene. Why don't you rank them for us and tell us a little bit about each of them and why you put them where you do?
All right, so for the young guys that came out, the toughest one to really rank this year is RG3.
Yeah.
It's a tough call with him. I love RG3. I think I like him better than I definitely like his talent better than Kaepernick and Wilson.
Right.
The injury concerns are there, but I really like him the best of the three. But I think that you can draft if you're drafting, you probably have a chance of he'd probably be on the board still. Kaepernick will probably go off the board before RG3, and I think at this point Russell Wilson, with the loss of Percy Harvin, sort of dropped down a little bit into that number 11, number 10, number 12 area on these quarterbacks. So if I had to rank them in order, I'd probably go, for drafting purposes, probably going to be Kaepernick, RG3, and then Russell Wilson as far as those young guys. And don't sleep on Ryan Tannehill, by the way, who's a pretty deep sleeper. I mean, he uses his feet a little bit. He's not a guy you're going to start, but he might be a decent backup quarterback for your bye week.
So, if you grab RG3 with the health risk, obviously, Tannehill might be a guy you might want to pair with him?
I think I want somebody better than Tannehill. If I'm taking, if I'm taking RG3, listen, I'm trying to get an Andrew Luck or a Russell Wilson on my team also. If I can't do that, and I'm going to that second tier, there's a few guys we like. A few guys I like. Anything from a Ben Roethlisberger, kind of an easy one. I like Alex Smith this season. I think he's got a chance.
Him? With
yeah.
Andy Reid?
Yeah.
Well, we were talking earlier about the Cincinnati Bengals and Hard Knocks, and do you see Dalton making that big jump this year up into next tier?
Oh,
He's
man.
got a lot of weapons around him.
I hope so. If I own AJ Green, I certainly would like to see. I don't know. I haven't seen. Andy Dalton kind of tailed off at the end of last season. He's one of those mysterious guys. He doesn't appear to have that much talent. You kind of look at him and the way he plays, but he puts up stats. Last season he had a great start to the season, had multiple 20-plus point games in a row, and everybody grabbed him. He was your fill-in for your bye week. You did good with him during those bye weeks. But I'm not sure on Dalton long term. He still physically lacks a little bit of athleticism, and it gives you a little bit of cause for. His arm isn't great, gives you a little cause for concern. But that team is really good, and I think that's working in Dalton's favor.
Right, I was going to say the same thing, because now you got Giovanni Bernard, who he can throw the screen pass to, going to get you those points. Also have the nice 2 tight end system working with Tyler Eifert and Gresham. AJ Green there as well. I mean, I think that, it's not so much about Dalton this year. It's about his weapons.
They have great weapons on the team, and I think that's going to help them. They have good. I like the whole concept of them going with that 2 tight end kind of, emulating what the Patriots are doing with those double tight ends, a lot of mismatches. And Giovanni Bernard, we talked about this on a running back show. I love Giovanni Bernard. He is probably the most talented. Yeah, he's the most talented guy that came out of the draft. There's every chance that he's going to be, I don't think week 1, but by the middle of the season, I think he's going to be the 70% of the carry. He's going to be the feature back on it. He better be.
He better be. Are we looking at a mirror image of like Doug Martin last year? Because he had a couple touchdowns early in the season, but it was about week 5, week 6 where he really took off.
Wow, I'm not sure that he has the Doug Martin, but that'd be amazing. If the Bengals dedicate the running game to Bernard exclusively, he has that kind of potential. He has the potential to be an RB1 type guy on a high scoring offense. I don't think that's going to get there this year. I think they're going to continue to sort of platoon them, but I think at some point during the year you expect that Bernard will be getting more of the carries. Maybe a 15-10 ratio or something like that between him and law firm. Okay. You'd like to see a guy, if you really want to feature a guy, you really want someone who's getting 20-plus carries a game. I'm not sure he's going to make it there. Doug Martin is the only game in town in Tampa. Yeah. I mean, they feed him the rock. He could get 30 touches. So, he's something special. I mean, it's kind of like comparing a new basketball player to Michael Jordan. Not really, but, Doug Martin's going off the board number 2 and number 3. I'm not sure Bernard is going to be there this year, but who knows? He has potential down the road.
I'll be you, Doug.
Yeah.
All right, so Kev, let's talk about another quarterback who has acquired some new weapons. Sammy Bradford in St. Louis. They go out, they draft 2 receivers. You got Tavon, Stephen Bailey. They go and get Jeff Fisher's old tight end and Jared Cook, who apparently has been killing it in training camp. Ton of athleticism, hasn't really put it together. Where do you see Bradford in the mix this year? It's kind of a make-or-break year for him. He's kind of in a contract year. What do you think of Bradford?
Bradford is one of those guys. He's in the same boat as Josh Freeman down in Tampa, where he's flashed some talent. Hasn't really shown himself to be a top-tier quarterback so far, but his teams have been pretty bad. They have added some nice weapons. You're right, Jared Cook. There's a ton of buzz around this guy, and the coaching staff is talking about feeding him the rock. He's a great sleeper at tight end. So St. Louis has potential. I don't like their running game, and I think that's going to hold the team back. They don't have any good running backs on that team. Not one. They're all awful.
Darryl Richardson, the kid from Cincinnati, Pied.
But I tell you what, with Cook, though, in a division like that, we got the defenses like Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona. Tight ends typically, tend to excel, when against tough defenses like that, because you're not going to get as much time to throw the ball and stuff like that.
They played well against those teams last year.
Sure did,
They really did. I mean, they dominated their division. It's one of the toughest. It is the toughest division in football, and they dominated. But at the same note, exactly what you just said is going to hold him back. I mean, he's got to play Seattle twice. He's got to play San Francisco twice, Arizona. Those are all great defenses, right. And I'm a little bit concerned about all of the teams in the NFC West in terms of the type of stats they're going to put up. Because normally when you're looking at matchups, the first thing you say is, Seattle, forget it, don't play that wide receiver. Right. San Francisco, don't play anyone against San Francisco. So those players on those teams are going to be facing really tough defenses week in and week out. I think it's going to. It doesn't bode well for fantasy points across the NFC West for any of those guys.
Yeah, definitely, because you're going to have a lot of low-scoring games, which in turn, no fantasy points. Now, you just spoke on my boy, Josh Freeman. Listen, the contract year for this guy, guy's got a cannon. The thing that I don't like about Josh Freeman, he can't throw the ball under pressure. That's when, he has his worst days.
That's where you make your money.
Obviously has Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams, no tight end there. A couple dump-off passes to Doug Martin. What are we seeing out of number 5 this year?
I mean, what you have there is a lot of really good skill players on offense. You're right, Doug Martin. That's quarterback's best friend. A guy like him, Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams, 2 really solid wide receivers. Interestingly, and I thought Josh Freeman played pretty well last season.
Yeah.
The buzz out of camp is this guy's fighting for his job this year. Like there was some talk that they were sniffing around some possible quarterbacks in the draft. Freeman, for whatever reason, that coaching staff is not sold yet. I don't think he's proven himself to be a franchise quarterback yet. He's going to have to do that this year. He really needs to step up his game even more. Again, I thought he played pretty good last year. I'm a little surprised at some of the buzz I'm reading, but the buzz out of camp is, he needs to step it up this year and show this team that he's a long-term answer. And I guess that happens in your contract year a lot. They're going to be making decisions whether they want to move on or keep this guy long-term, and he needs to show a little bit more than what he's shown apparently.
Yeah, the thing with Freeman last year, he had in weeks 15 and 16, primetime area fantasy football season, he threw 4 interceptions in each of those games. So you take away those stats from week 15 and 16, he's got 25 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. So
well, if you're playing Josh Freeman in 15 and 16, you're not playing in the playoffs anyway. So it doesn't matter.
And if you were starting Josh Freeman, chances are you were not in the fantasy playoffs. But if you happen to use him and on your daily fantasy type stuff, yeah, he really burned people those last couple of weeks, and that that's been his career though. He has never been consistent. I mean, I like to compare him to Sanchez because he was taking 10 picks later.
Come on, you're killing me, Epstein.
That's a bad.
One fumble.
Come on.
Compared to my boy Sanchez,
We'll see in week 1 who's
Joe
who.
Montana.
Speaking of week 1, since Walsh got his homer question in, let's see if we can get one in here. Week 1, we got I'm a Cowboy fan, Molly's a Giant fan, Romo versus Eli. Who you like better over the course of the season, and in week 1, who wins that matchup?
All right, so the game-wise, I like the Cowboys in that game.
You're out of your mind.
Romo.
You're out of your mind, Epstein. You're out of your mind, Epstein.
We'll watch this together then?
Oh, no, they're not going to let me back on the show anymore. I do. I think Romo's a better quarterback than Eli Manning. Oh, blasphemy. He is. I think he's better. Not in the clutch. Eli is clearly a clutch guy.
Yeah.
But the weapons for Dallas this season are really solid. Dez Bryant looks like an animal. I love Dez Bryant this year, and the Romo to Bryant connection, a healthy Miles Austin, Jason Witten coming back, DeMarco Murray early in the season when he's still healthy. He'll be gone week 4 or 5, but while he's still healthy, the guy's really good. So early in the season they have a really good running game. I haven't studied the where that game is, a home game, away game.
It's at Dallas.
Is it at Dallas? Yeah. I mean, I think the Giants and the Cowboys, they'll always play each other tough, and you kind of expect the home team to win that matchup. And then when they come back to New York, I would expect the Giants to win that game. But long term, for the course of the season, Tony Romo is a much more consistent quarterback than Eli Manning is, or generally has been.
You think Romo could jump into that maybe top 5, top 7 this year?
Romo has a chance. I mean,
I think Romo is looked down upon because he comes up short in the big moments.
Right,
but
his numbers
but
there.
fantasy-wise, he throws for 4,000. He has Dez, who may be the best, outside of Calvin Johnson, probably the best, one of the best wide receivers in football. I like Romo this year. I can't stay on the Cowboys, but I like Romo in fantasy.
That makes 2 of us.
Well, people get confused with playing well in the clutch and winning the playoff game. I don't care a thing about who wins what game.
Because the Jets aren't going to be in the playoffs, obviously.
Ever, maybe.
A guy can dream, but I mean, in general, I'm happy when the Patriots lose. But in general, I don't care for fantasy purposes if the guy's not good in the clutch. The nice thing about Dallas is their defense isn't that good,
Right.
so they tend to be in a shootout. So what I'm looking for when I'm choosing any player in fantasy is, of course you want to look at that player's talent and previous year stats, but there's a sort of a little known factor, and I like teams that have horrible defenses and quality offenses, because the chances of a shootout game for a team like that are going to be higher than San Francisco or Seattle, where they're always grinding out the win with tough defense, not throwing up the ball, not putting up the fantasy stats. I want teams that put up fantasy stats, so I'm looking for bad, picture New Orleans. Horrible defense,
right.
Amazing offense. Unfortunately, New Orleans screws us with their spreading the ball around too much. You really don't know who to take from that team. But any other situation like that, and Dallas is on that list. There's a few teams. The Eagles, offense looks awful. I mean, the defense looks awful. The offense looks like it could be all right. Those guys put up a lot of stats.
That Eagle quarterback situation now that you brought up the Eagles? Another team I hate, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you must be a Giants fan. I love the Eagles.
Must be.
Yeah, I mean, Vic has potential this year if he stays healthy to be. We didn't even talk about Michael Vick in the top 12. Michael Vick's a top 6-7 guy if he's healthy. He's going to put up stats. They have a horrible another team with an awful defense. They are a mess out there. I watched the preseason game. They looked horrible on D, and their offense looked really good. Vic, 56-yard touchdown pass to Sean Jackson. That new offense with Chip Kelly and the high speed kind of deal going on. We don't know what's going to happen with it, but I think Vic is a sleeper, a kind of guy that has the potential, if in a larger league, to anchor somebody's team as a quarterback who's rated really a very long time. But
is Vic even getting drafted?
I think you would have to as a backup. Absolutely.
I don't honestly. I don't like. I've done a lot of mocks. Maybe I haven't paid attention.
Walsh will have RG3.
I don't even recall Vic. What's his ADP?
People tend to ignore the backup quarterback in mocks. When it comes to real drafting, a lot of people, and I don't necessarily think you need to even draft a backup quarterback unless you have one of these guys that are an injury concern. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I won't draft a quarterback at all, or a backup quarterback at all. You could pick a last season. I had the bye weeks. I picked up Andy Dalton. I picked up a Carson Palmer. A guy like that can get you through your bye week, and you don't really need to waste the roster spot. I mean, a lot of these guys are really the kind of waiver fodder. Now, in bigger leagues, 12, 14, 16 teams, you got to draft a guy, and you might want to take a second guy because there might not be anybody on waivers. But in your standard 10, 12-team leagues, you could skip the backup quarterback altogether in your draft. Just deal with it on waivers when you need to.
Now, you mentioned Carson Palmer. He's going over to Arizona this year, so he's got Fitzgerald and Floyd to throw the ball to. Is he worth the investment?
I really love Fitzgerald this season because of Palmer being there. Yeah, Fitzgerald is probably one of the most underrated. He had a horrible year last year. He's really started going in the late third, early fourth round. Top 12 or 15 wide receivers. But you see people even grabbing a Victor Cruz first. You see him. I've seen just strange, like Amendola going first ahead of him. Fitzgerald is going to be great this year with Carson Palmer throwing the ball. People forget Fitzgerald is a talent on the level of Calvin Johnson. He just has had no one to throw him the ball this year.
Johnny Skelton, try to afford him.
Johnny Skelton. I mean, Kevin Cobb. These guys were horrible. I can't even. There was a third guy over there, Ryan Lindley.
I think we
something.
talked about it. Yeah, that Jet game was the worst quarterback game. That Jet Cardinal game was the worst quarterback game ever.
But you look at it, the last time Arizona had a quarterback, Kurt Warner. They went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think? Bruce Arians. He was Andy Luck's coordinator last year. He takes the head coaching job in Arizona. You think he plays a factor? I know he likes to throw the ball downfield. Is that part of the reason you like Fitz and Carson Palmer?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of it. Bruce Arians has been at the helm of high-scoring offenses, so you like the pickup of Bruce Arians over there. I think that, again, Carson Palmer, he's kind of statuesque in the pocket, but he can throw the ball, and he's a professional NFL quarterback, middle of the pack. He will be able to get Fitzgerald the ball. The other thing they changed over in Arizona is they added in the draft a ninth pick in the draft. I think it was Jonathan Cooper or the seventh pick in the draft.
Yeah, the guard from Carolina.
A real nasty mauler of a guard.
Mauler, yeah.
Reports are great. I mean, their big problem last year was a horrible offense. Aside from the quarterback, their offensive line was terrible.
Right.
They've really done some things to shore it up. I don't think it's going to be the kind of weakness it was last season. I'm still not, drafting Rashard Mendenhall in the fourth round or the third round, running behind that Arizona line. But they should be better, and I think it gives Carson Palmer a shot to get the ball to Larry Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald to really ascend to top 5 wide receiver status.
All right, interesting. How about two other guys? How about we take down Big Ben? Mike Wallace is gone, and Jay Cutler, both Big Ben's in the second year with that offensive coordinator.
How about before we talk about Big Ben? I mean, how about Heath Miller's gone? That's a huge detriment, and that I think people don't even realize.
I mean, you look around the Steelers' skill position players, and one does have to wonder, where the stars are here. They got Le'Veon Bell, a rookie, who's now looking like a 3-down starting running back. No one really knows how good he is. I mean, he's got potential, but he doesn't have explosiveness like a C.J. Spiller. He's not fast like a Jamal Charles. He's more of a good solid running back type guy, but he's not gonna be all that explosive. He's more of a mauler, like going to barrel people over.
Right.
So they don't have that speed there. Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, I like Brown as a wide receiver because they have no other options this year. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger had some injuries last year. Didn't have such a great season, but he's when I look at Roethlisberger, he's not a bad backup guy. He'll put up a nice stat line. I love the way he plays, especially in his prime.
I tell you what, though, that Pittsburgh team, now they're not getting any younger. That's an old team there. That's both sides of the ball. I mean, yes, you got the wide receivers there, but
their offensive line's a little bit younger. They took the Castro last year out of Stanford to play guard. He was out all year, so you get him back. But no, I think Roethlisberger's taken a beating over the years. Absolutely, that's absolutely
he really has. I was thinking about this the other day, and if you remember back to when Roethlisberger was drafted, so that was a pretty highly touted first round for quarterbacks. You had Roethlisberger, Rivers, and Eli Manning go. And last season, I was thinking about it, and you think of Eli as sort of still growing, getting better. The reality is these guys are either in the prime or on the downside of their careers. I mean, they've been out. They've been. Yeah, this is 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
I mean, you think of Phillip Rivers and the way he's been the last couple of years, and you kind of think this guy maybe has lost it, And then you saw Ben Roethlisberger with the injuries last year, and you kind of started to. I had this thought of, well, what if that grouping is now sort of a little bit getting to that over the hill point, or some of those guys.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait for Eli to leave.
I don't blame you. We kick your ass all the time.
He sure does.
Interestingly, Eli, I don't find.
Is Eli a top 12 guy?
I don't really see him falling off the cliff, but I have concerns about both Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger maybe being at that point where some of those athletic skills start to diminish a little bit. For whatever reason, when I watch Eli, he does not seem to me like, his skills are diminishing.
He was never athletic.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
As my boy Walsh, he's Woody from Toy Story.
He's a nice term.
He's been calling him that for years.
How about that hit that he took, his first start against the Eagles? Good Lord.
Who's that, Eli?
Eli.
Well, that was a long time ago.
My God.
Man.
How do you remember
but
that?
all right, so let me talk about Eli because I'm a Giant fan. So let me talk about him. So
here we go.
No, so you got Eli, right? So I think Eli, how good Eli is, I think it is dependent upon if Nix is healthy. I think if Nix is healthy and you get Nix and Cruz in the slot with Ruben Randall developing on the other outside, Brandon Myers, I think it could be a big-time sleeper tight end. I think that, you got David Wilson, explosive out of the backfield, Andre Brown on the goal line doing the tough yardage. I think that offense could be absolutely explosive dependent upon if Nix stays healthy. How do you see it?
I agree with you.
You better.
Almost 100% there. I
girl.
think a big part of it, not just Nick's. Nick's been mixed up a lot, and so you're concerned about that. the Giants' offensive line really has been hit or miss the last few years.
True.
And I think a lot of it comes back to that offensive line. You guys said it before. I mean, Eli's kind of, I want to use a nice word. We're going to call him statuesque.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, he doesn't move very much or very fast. And so he needs a pretty solid offensive line to really excel. I agree on the weapons. I think when you look at the skill players on the Giants, every one of those guys looks really set. Ruben Randall, this is a second-round draft pick, a big guy,
From LSU.
a Hakeem Nicks clone.
Yeah, great guy.
He's
Love this
great.
guy.
I mean, he has all the potential in the world. I have him on the bench on a few of my leagues. Wherever I have Hakeem Nicks, I have Ruben Randall on my bench.
Nice.
I'm handcuffing him with Randall because I think
play.
Randall becomes a star if Nicks goes down.
Right.
But, yeah, I think Nicks' health and that offensive line sort of gelling, coming together, just becoming an above-average group if they could get there, I think would go a long way for the Giants.
Well, let's hope they don't.
All right, let's close out the segment now with the quarterback of the Chicago Bears, number 6, Jay Cutler. Now, this is an interesting character right here. He's had his great years, he's had his downfall years, but he's now got a coach that's coming from the CFL. And, if you know anything about the CFL,
Mark Trestman.
we got all sorts of crazy formations and all this.
Can
and that
Cutler's
going
head
on.
handle it?
Yeah, is that going to translate to NFL success?
Well, I watched the preseason game, the first preseason game for the Bears. And, I was trying to get a sense. Anytime there's a new, I watched the Eagles one, too, for this reason. Brand new offense. I just want to see how it looked.
Yeah.
And what I noticed in the Bears game, what you have is a lot of slants, 3-step drops. Definitely not what you're used to seeing out of a Jay Cutler, but definitely delivering the ball faster than what he did last season. So there's some potential there. I'm not sure if it's playing to Cutler's strengths, that type of an offense. And on the negative side, going back to offensive line, the Bears' offensive line does not look good. Former New York Jet Matty Slauson, man in the left guard position.
Is that who they have?
I mean, if he's not good enough for the Jets, really,
Send him to the CFL.
why are you in the NFL? I mean, they're excited about signing Matt Slauson. He sucks, and so I'm concerned for that offensive line, which wasn't good to begin with. I don't feel like they shored it up very much. So,
I would be
as far as Jay
concerned for
Cutler
the
goes,
line. I'd be concerned for Cutler.
yeah. Now, I still love Brandon Marshall. I'll take him all day long. Matt Forte, actually, my concern, I have a little extra concern for him watching how bad the Bears' offensive line was in that first game. We're going to monitor the rest of the games in the preseason to see if maybe they step it up a bit. But I kind of have a little bit of more concern for Matt Forte having a good year behind that terrible offensive line. Not that he runs into the line very often, but you do want to be able to run it up the gut once in a while. So a little bit of a sort of a red flag there, just a terrible O-line for Chicago. But the offense itself with those quick slant passes, I think it has potential if they can hold up that line. Alshon Jeffrey looked really good in that game. So
I like him also.
Alshon Jeffrey was a huge talent coming out of high school to South Carolina.
Yeah.
He was one of the highest recruited players in the country. He really was. He had a ton of talent.
He is a physical specimen. I mean, you see him, he's big, he's fast, he's everything you want in a wide receiver. So, I mean, he's got all the potential in the world. If they let Jay Cutler air it out, I mean, Marshall, there's enough scoring in that offense where Marshall, Jeffrey, and Forte all can get their points. But I think, Jay Cutler, I'm not sure I'd want him even as a backup on my bench.
Yeah, that Bears preseason game was against Carolina. That's not exactly a team that's,
That's why I was so concerned.
Yeah,
I mean,
killing it on defense.
You're not looking at, they weren't playing against Seattle. They were playing
Right.
Carolina, which is known to be, pretty soft interior defense. And I mean, Carolina just dominated their line all night long. Cutler, I think they had him playing all the way into almost to the half just to try to get him one solid series. It was not pretty.
Yeah, I can see that. When Cutler first got to Chicago too, I think they had a different system, and he struggled mightily that first year. The more and more that I see things from Cutler, it's probably not going to be a pretty year in Chicago.
Yeah. Now he's a solid middle of the road quarterback. I mean, he's an NFL quarterback. So if all the things are in place for him, that offensive line, the skill position players, he'll do well. He's not he is a worthy starting quarterback in the NFL. I just think
He's
I
good
can't
to use
understand
for
why
your
they didn't.
backup.
Well, that's right. He's no career backup. He's not a guy who, you're looking to replace if you're Chicago. But at the same time, I don't get why they didn't address the offensive line better in the off season. They seem to try to do it on the cheap, and I just think that's crazy. I mean, Cutler gets killed back there. They need to have quality players on that line.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats right now from that opening preseason game. 7 sacks from the Carolina defense in that game. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's what I'm.
So-
I hope it was you hope it was a one-time sort of anomaly, but
Right.
man, they look bad.
Yeah, that's not looking good. All right, so next week we actually we're gonna get to speak one more time before we have the 14A Sports Fantasy Draft. So we'll talk during the week and talk about the direction of our discussion. Maybe get a couple questions from everybody in the draft, something like that.
Well, I've hit Kev up on Twitter a couple times, asked him some advice, asked him what he thought.
Yeah, we're gonna
on-
give
on
George
certain
your
players.
Twitter handle because he needs.
Or
some.
maybe
no,
we
no.
won't.
No,
Yeah.
kid, no. Hey, if this kid autograph guy tweets you, just say take Rogers.
Yeah, can't miss.
Take Rogers. Tell him at the 4 spot.
Yeah, we'll throw some misinformation out there for some of your league mates. Like, oh
There we
yeah,
go.
you gotta get Forte first running back. Go for it.
Get Cutler as your backup too. Yeah.
Yeah, Cutler is your starter. Don't worry about it. He's great.
Awesome. All right, Kev. We'll be talking during the week, and as always, bringing the hard hitting stuff. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Same here, guys. Thanks for having me, and always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, you got
Thank
it.
you.
We'll see you.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, that was a very lengthy discussion on the quarterbacks, running
what?
about 40 minutes right there.
You know what happens with the quarterbacks? You can't take them. You can't take them in a vacuum.
Yeah.
The quarterbacks. What's the offense? Who the offensive line? Everything else plays into it. Who the new weapons?
Definitely.
So it branches off into all topics.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I loved every single 40 minutes of it.
I could talk for another hour. Man.
Absolutely.
I got nothing to do.
We got 40
Plenty of beer
more
left.
Yeah.
All right, so let's keep going. No, I'm kidding. We can't do that. All right, so special thanks to Luther Wright tonight for coming on the show.
Great interview.
That was great stuff. Go
And,
pick up his book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A perfect fit.
Perfect fit.
Perfect fit where you could buy books.
Anyway, you could buy books.
Yes, Mr. Wright. Yes, you're right.
But actually, I was just like, we've already gotten some pretty positive feedback from the
Yeah,
fans
definitely.
out there watching interviews, so we
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that.
Got a lot of clicks today, too.
Yeah.
And listen, you say you don't watch. We got the stats, people. We know you're watching.
Well, how about
It's a guilty pleasure.
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
how about I'm excited for next week, man. How about next week? We got
Oh, we didn't even mention it. You know what the
Champ.
the call-ins were, where I'm like, welcome back to the 14A Sports Radio Show. The champ is here. The champ is here.
He might reach over and punch you.
Can you block him?
Oh.
No shot.
There's no
See the
way.
size of his hands.
There's no way he has bigger hands than Luther.
No, definitely
Close.
not.
Bro.
Luther, holy jeez Louise.
His hands are
He
mini
goes-
computer size.
I was like, how do you do with gloves? He goes, I wear towels. Tremendous.
Oh, man. But yeah, next week we're gonna have Chuck Wepner on the show. So if you thought that Luther Wright interview was too long, well, too bad. This one's gonna be double as long. We're basically gonna
He's
have
a Bayonne legend.
yeah,
though,
we're
you know?
basically gonna have our own 30 for 30 going on here. So yeah, we're gonna have a nice little week
I'm
of
excited,
research
man.
going
I'm
on
excited.
about
Yeah.
that. Probably have a viewing party down at the semi-waterfront.
Oh, well, you guys could come sun with me and read.
I can't bring the cable box all the way over there. Oh boy.
Not a long enough cord.
Nah, that's gonna
Get
be
me the
fun.
implants.
That's gonna be fun. We'll have Chuck back, or we'll have not back on, but we'll have him on. Then we'll have Coles, describing the news and her trip down to the Ocean City area.
I say we forego the news next week and just have her tell stories from Ocean City.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I like that. Just
All right.
handwrite them.
Yeah.
She probably won't have any
Put
idea
'em on
what's
a
going
bar
on.
sheet.
Anyway.
She won't remember.
And then, later on in the show, let's do that. We'll try to get questions from everybody in the league, and we'll try to have Kev answer them.
All right, nice.
That'll be a-
Little
that'll be a
rapid
good
fire
segue.
question.
Yeah,
and
Plan
answer.
the show right here on air.
Okay.
No one's
Can I
listening
get
now.
another beer? All right.
This is always the part that gets cut.
Yeah, there's two people online watching. I'm one of them, and HG's the other one.
Nice.
That's all right. All right, so we'll close it up right now. Try to get a smooth ending for this one.
once.
From me and the rest of the 14A team, we're taking it down for the night. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. It's 14A Sports on 15 Minutes Fame Radio.
Let's go.